I've been experimenting with the best positioning for this locking wrench, and unfortunately once you put an indexing plate on and or the chuck or back plate, you can't get this wrench off. So I think this is the best position. So right there is lock, and then unlock is like this. So let's put on an indexing plate. We're going to put on the number 1 plate. All right, let's see what's next here. Looks like it's going to be our sector arms. Okay, so here's our sector arms. We got a little screw that holds them together, and a little washer. Okay, and then we got the spring. I'm going to put a dab of grease on the spring here. I will leave those on the bottom for now. One of the styles of springs that I did see on another video actually has a little key in there, but this one doesn't have it. Okay, and then we've got retaining collar. Put a little bit of grease on there. Okay. Let's put this together before we go any farther. So here's our plunger. And we've got, there's a little dog point grub screw or set screw goes in here. If you guys can see, it's got a little dog point. And that's going to go down into here, and it engages this keyway to keep the body and the plunger from turning. Plus it holds everything together. Alright, so that is actually threaded as well, so I gotta get, and I know I have this the right way because I can see the marks from the hold down nut from out here. So these threads need to engage at the same time. There we go. So there's a mark on here, and I was assuming that that mark was from the hold down nut, but I actually think it's, well, let's take a look again. There's the washer that goes on there. That wouldn't have made that mark. I think it's from that ring. So I'm going to try flipping this over. All right, we got this fixed off camera. So yeah, we did have this guy on backwards. So we got it turned around, and we've got our dog point all the way down. So now it's engaging that little keyway much better. Okay, let's continue on. So this guy is going to go on here. Line it up with for indexing holes. washer. See, our sector arms still move. Our spindle's locked. Let me unlock it. Okay, so we got something wrong here. We're bound up for some reason. Okay. All right, let me study this for a few minutes. I'll bring you guys back. So off camera, we discovered what was going on. So we've got our backlash nut here, and when we first put that on, we took out all the backlash till we had a little bit of drag, and then just backed off a little. Well, there's enough slop in these threads that when you assemble everything and tighten this nut down, it puts enough pressure on this nut that that little bit of slop uses up what was left of the backlash. So we just had to back off just a little bit. So we just have, I still can't even feel the backlash, but we just gave it just a touch more. And now we're good. Put her back together here. And then we also made one more discovery while we had everything apart. And that's the importance of the little keyway in here and the dog point grub screw. Let me tighten this down. I'm going to make sure I hold back pressure here. I don't want to put tightening torque on our indexing pin. Okay, well, that was too much. So yesterday, a couple of the neighbors came by while I was doing the final assembly here. So that interrupted the filming. But let's take a look at what we did. We threaded the chuck on. I don't remember if I showed that before. Nothing special there. Made a modification. Let me see if you guys can see this, where this wrench goes. So this is the wrench that fits the locking screw. And let me rotate this so you guys can see. So that locking screw is back in there behind the indexing plate, and before you had to pull the plate off to be able to get in here and get this wrench on and off, which that just wasn't working. So we just ground a little off each face on the wrench and re-blued it, and also ground just a little bit off the head of the square head grub screw there, and now we can get it on and off no problem. Okay. All right, the other thing we're having problems with, well, we did have an issue here when I'm sure you guys can see that when we tightened down the plunger mounting arm here, we were binding up, and what happened is the nut that's behind here that sets the end play on the worm shaft has got a little give to there's a little give in the threads. So I had it right down to the last little bit of end play, where it wouldn't drag, and just by tightening this nut up, it was putting extra pressure, and just the slop in the threads was taking out that end play and causing us to bind up. So I had to back off on the inner one a little bit. The last thing here I want to look at is, you can see when we advance our feed here, the sector arms are turning, and I don't like that. So we're going to take this off, and I don't remember, I might have put a little bit of grease or something behind these sector arms, but I want to try to have enough friction there that only the crank turns and not the sector arms on their own. So let's take that apart and see if we can do something with that. This is the nut that we were just talking about that adjusts the end play. And it took a couple trial and errors to get that just right. All right, so the only thing that keeps that from turning is friction, and I don't feel any grease or oil on there. We're going to wipe it off really good. Still leaves a little bit on the peripheral, where if I go this way, matches up a little better. Plus I don't like having the small surface of this spring washer, I don't know what you call it, but against the softer bronze or brass, whatever this is. So I like having more surface area here, but at the same time, of course, we don't want it to turn. Let me grab a little oil. Hey, okay. Well, let's see, maybe we just got lucky. Oh. Okay, so looks like that was the issue. Okay, good. All right, so the other thing we did yesterday is we finished adjusting our thrust nut here, and then we torqued down or tighten down the locking screw. And if you guys can see that little Allen locking screw there, just it just tightens up the split. So we're good to go. We got one more thing to do, and that is we got to zero in the chuck. So what we'll do is we'll bolt this down over in the milling machine, set up a dial indicator. I'll get that all set up, and then I'll bring you guys in for that. Oh, and we do have all three plates. So we got a complete setup here. I don't remember if I showed this or not, but here's how you release the spindle. You just back off on the backlash adjustment, sorry, no pun intended there, and you can see how the worm just angles out of the way, and now the spindle's free to turn. And that's what you would also do if you're going to use the direct indexing pin over here. Yeah, but we're going to need this free spinning so that we can dial in the chuck. Well guys, I've been working on this thing for a while off camera, and the sad news is this chuck is no good. So the first issue we ran into, well, let me show you what we got here first. Yeah, let me zero that so you can see it easier. Hopefully that's showing up on camera. So we've got, what do we got there? About 7 thousandths run out. And that is way better than what I was dealing with before. But anyways, what's going on is, for one thing, remember we had the crack in the backing, or the back half of the chuck here. Well, these threads are not holding, so I can't use this one set screw. So I've been just tapping a little bit with a soft hammer to adjust. And the jaws are also way out. The inner jaws, I tried a piece of drill rod that you know, it was just flopping all over the place. So the inner jaws need to be reground. The outer jaws aren't that great either. So I think there's just too many issues. You know, they're just all adding up here. So it's probably not worth pursuing, you know, any more effort to trying to save this. It's too bad. It's a buck, a just a true chuck, but it's just been worked over too many times. So I think we're going to call it a wrap at this point. At least we've got a good dividing head that needs a chuck. Okay, well, hey everybody, thanks for sticking with this and following it through. And I'll get some still photos we'll throw up at the end here. And thanks again for joining in, everyone.